In this episode, we're diving into Hello, I Must Be Going, the album where Phil Collins stepped out from behind the drum kit and fully owned the spotlight. Released at the dawn of the 80s, it's a sharp, hook-heavy mix of bruised heart confessionals, big gated drum punch, and pop craftsmanship that is equal parts Breakup Diary and radio rocket fuel. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast, 2026 version. Eric, do you have that? I don't really write that much anymore, but it used to be a thing in the beginning of the year. You're still writing like the last year if you're writing like a check or if you're writing the date.
Right.
You still do you do, is that a thing? Because I barely write anymore. It's like,
no,
because everything's digital.
Yeah. I think the only thing that I actually still write is when I'm paying bills. I have a logbook. And we
really?
record. Although lately,
what are you, like the bookkeeper from the Untouchables?
Lately, actually, the last couple of months, I've been using my notes on my phone and just recording stuff there and just transferring it over. This past month, I didn't even transfer anything over, so I just I stuck out everything recorded.
So, like writing has become kind of passé.
Yeah.
As it were.
I think I'd probably write at work, maybe little Post-its if I'm leaving a note for somebody. I barely, everybody likes using emails. Sometimes it's not worth doing a whole email thing, so it's just a quick, note. Hey, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I pretty much write one rent check a month, and that's pretty much, maybe a little scribble here and there. But anyway, let us know. Reach out to us. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Do you have a problem in the beginning of the year? Do you forget to write the new year when you're writing a date? It was a big thing back when I worked in retail, and you're writing, deposit slips for the bank, and it would always take a little bit for that to kind of lock in that you're in a new year. But anyway, we are in 2026, and the reason why that whole thing started is because we're closing out, or may have, by the time this comes out, may have started our 6th year and completed our 5th year. So
yeah. Amazing.
Eric and I still need to plan what we're going to do to celebrate our 5th anniversary, like what kind of episode we're going to do. Or do we just not do anything and just kind of like the antithesis, the un-episode?
Just have just a really good discussion like we're doing right now. So
I thought we could kind of have everybody kind of like invite all the guests that we've ever had, but have them come in on a rolling basis, like kind of couple people come in for 10 or 20 minutes and then they leave and then the next group come in. But I don't know. That sounds like a lot of logistics.
Yeah. And the timing could be a little.
Yeah. Because then you got to throw people out if they get a little too long-winded. It's like, okay, listen, it's our anniversary. You need to leave now. We'll have like a little flick, we'll have like a little red light at the Oscars that we'll have. And it's like, wrap it up 30 seconds.
I'm sure some that might offend some people in this group.
Yeah.
We do have some characters, so
might bruise a couple of egos, but we'll figure out it. We'll figure it out, and we'll do something. For our anniversary. But in the meantime, we're here for Hello, I Must Be Going. We're doing them out of order, and I don't mind that.
No, I don't either.
Yeah, we pretty much haven't done any albums in order.
It's completely random. It's
we kind of zero in on maybe the biggest one, and then we kind of work around it or whatever. But I kind of like that because it, maybe sometimes we get some insight about some stuff, and then we kind of are able to adapt it. So we're not going in order per se, but and I think it just makes it a little more interesting.
Now, do you base a lot, because sometimes we'll just, you'll just like, hey, you want to do this next week? You send me like a title, an album title or whatever. Let's just, want to do this now. I'm like, sure, I'll talk about anything.
Sure.
Now, I'm wondering though, I'm often thinking like, does Dean sit in front of his record collection, like looking at his collection and he's saying, that next week, or like you're just pulling an album out and listening to it or something, just, whatever. Does that happen?
No, I'm still on the list in my mind.
The list in your mind. Okay.
Yeah. I'm rarely at the point, like it's rarely like, oh, what are we going to do? Sometimes it's like that because I'm saving certain things like we've talked about in the past, is we don't want to kind of blow the load in the beginning.
Right.
So this was one that I've always wanted to talk about.
Because it's your favorite, right? Am I correct?
It's well, we'll get to that. I mean, you asked me a question before we went on, and I said, don't ask me that yet because we're not recording. So,
all right,
let's do the stats first, and then we'll get into the conversation, because that's since day one, our stats have been there. We always do it. I love doing it. I love having that base to start the conversation, and sometimes it kicks things off, or sometimes it's just there, and then we move on from it. But this was released in November of 1982.
Yeah,
which was a lot older than I thought it was. My 80s timeline is so sketchy as to when things came out and happened. I had to go back and look.
It blew my mind, because this to me was the probably one of the biggest sort of Mandela effects I've ever had, because I was always under the assumption that he recorded this first before he produced Frida's third solo record, Something Going On. And, and I always thought that he recorded it at Polar Studios, the famous, studio by ABBA.
Yeah.
And I thought that her album came right immediately after they were recording this record. So, it's almost like an extension of this record, because he used the exact same band, same sound, same everything. But that's not the case. That's not the case. He recorded her album first. And then went into the studio and did this album, which is odd to me, because he told her, he goes, I don't have any songs for you.
Yeah.
Right. He took something from face value, gave it to her to do, but he goes, I don't have any, I would love to have written a song for you. And
but here's my leftover.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it just blew my mind. And I was just like, I could have, it's the only album they ever recorded in Polar Studios was Duke with Genesis. That was the run. And I don't know why I thought that all these years. It just blew my mind. And her album was first. And it's like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And for me, the Mandela effect was just like the order of albums, which we'll get to, because I want to talk about that a little. I want to talk about what we were, or what, at least what I was experiencing. I'm sure you were experiencing the same thing at the time. Released November 1982, produced by Phil Collins and Mr. Hugh Padgham. He's the magician, for Genesis and for Phil Collins, and for the Police.
And the Police, yeah.
All songs written by Phil Collins, except "You Can't Hurry Love," "Holland Dozier Holland." There were 3 U.S. singles. There was like 7 singles released from this album, but only 3 in the U.S. You Can't Hurry Love hit number 10. I Don't Care Anymore hit 39. And the slide continues. I Cannot Believe It's True at 79. So not huge for what this album was, though. This album would hit number 8 on Billboard and went 3 times platinum. So it was a big album.
Yeah.
Just again, that, the singles don't tell us the story.
No.
Which is weird.
Of course, and of course MTV too, right? I mean, what's hot right now? The video hot, for You Can't Hurry Love. I mean, it was on all the time.
Yeah, it was huge.
It was huge,
It was huge. And the thing about it, since you brought up You Can't Hurry Love, or since we're talking about it, I had never heard the original version first. I'd never heard the Supremes version first. There have been plenty of songs like that, especially almost anything that Linda Ronstadt had in the 70s, like all of her covers, like When Will I Be Loved, and all, like those were my first exposure to them.
Sure, yeah. That was seemed odd to me too. Like why of all the Motown songs to cover, why this one in particular? Yeah. And I want to say, I can't remember offhand. It's been a while since I read his autobiography, but I think it had something to do with his mom, and like that was one of her favorite tracks. And the song pretty much says that in the, like my mom always told me, so that kind of hit home. And I think that's the case. And, that's the reason why he chose this one in particular.
And for You Can't Hurry Love, he also wanted to do a remake and not a reinterpretation.
Yeah.
And the problem they had was that technology had advanced so much that he was having a problem getting the old time drum sound because recording techniques were a lot better. Yeah. And it's hard to make things sound worse when they sound good, right? It's like, it's easy to kind of, if you've got, it's, not, like, it's easy to kind of, I think, make more magic when things don't sound good because you got to be more creative. But when things sound great, to make them sound worse or less technologically advanced, it was harder. That was the challenge. But he wanted to make see if him and Hugh Padgham could do a faithful reproduction of the song. Which when you listen to it in that light, I think it makes the song even better. That he was trying to do a faithful recreation of like, are we able to do something like this? It was almost like a thought experiment. So anyway, Phil Collins, member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Genesis. Why is he not in as a solo artist yet? What is the holdup?
Not sure.
He should have been in as a solo artist. I dare say his solo career was bigger than his career with Genesis.
That's true.
Right? Like all the production work he did on the side, not to mention his massive solo career.
Multiple Grammys, Academy Awards.
He's got an Oscar for Tarzan, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
So did he get an Emmy for Miami Vice?
I don't know.
Is he an EGOT? Is he an EGOT or no?
I don't think so.
Get a Tony.
No, I don't think so. But
pretty close.
Yeah. So
I think Elton John, his buddy, is the EGOT, right? I think he's got it.
Yeah. But
Lion King and all that. Aida, I think so. Yeah, he should definitely be put in as a solo artist. There's no reason. I can't see a compelling reason why he hasn't been put in yet. That's just weird.
Unless there's, I mean,
we're
not going to go there. The politics.
There's the politics of it, but
I mean, why did
that one should be a slam dunk.
It was always a head scratcher, I think, for people, especially critics. I think we talked about this a lot too, but it's just, nobody ever, I don't think at some point somebody thought, this guy is not important. How is it that he is so popular? Whatever. I personally think that he represents the everyman. I think he legitimately, if somebody ever told him, hey, you are like the 80s equivalent of Ringo, that would be the ultimate compliment for him. And I mean that when they say Ringo, I'm meaning in a derogatory way. Like Ringo was always the Beatle that was not quite at the level of the other three. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think for him, it would be the ultimate compliment to say, he would love nothing more. Because he was such a fan, not only the Beatles, but Ringo in particular. And, there's several things on this album that's the reason I bring it up, because some of the stuff he does on this record is just, it just reminds me of the way Ringo rolls off the toms and, that kind of thing. And it's incredible. Yeah.
It's interesting that in Face Value, he covered the Beatles.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in his second album, he covers the Supremes, who were arguably the two biggest acts of the 60s. Actually, I think the Supremes were literally were only second to the Beatles in terms of number one hits. It's pretty interesting that and those two influences couldn't be more different.
Right. Sure.
Right. That he said, and the choice of songs to cover. Right. Because we, see our Face Value episode where he does Tomorrow Never Knows, which is just the most psychedelic and experimental that the Beatles got. And then his other heroes, the Supremes, he does a traditional by the numbers. I'm going to replicate this.
Yeah.
And do a faithful reproduction of it. So it's very, and there are a lot of other in revisiting this album, he kind of went back to the Face Value blueprint, a cover, an instrumental, so there was kind of like a safe zone, but I love this album. This was my introduction. Yeah. You asked me before we came on is why this album or why, and this was like, you were getting me into this stuff. I don't know if Abacab was on my radar at this point, or it was Phil Collins. And then I certainly hadn't listened to Face Value. I could tell you that much. That was a go back. Yeah. This was kind of like the cornerstone of me getting into Phil Collins and Genesis, I think.
And it's odd, so late in the year too, that this album came out. I remember getting this. This was my first. I think I had Abacab at this point, but I didn't have Face Value. No, so this one, I did get this before Face Value. So for me too, I went back. But this is primarily, this was the year that I got into all of it, because there was just so much content right there, just within the last 3 years, from Gabriel's third album to his second album came out in 82. You had Abacab, you had Face Value a year before, you had Duke that came out in 80, so all of this stuff I kind of got all at the same time. Three Sides Live came out in 82 too, as well. So that was a big one for me.
And that's the point I wanted to circle back on is it was such a great time to be into him.
It was the best.
We were getting on the train just before it got into Grand Central Station, right? And all the crowds were there. It was like the perfect time to be able to, where he was prolific. If like you said, like that's why I had to go back to the discography. I'm like, wait. And it was like, Face Value and Abacab came out in like the same year. And then this came out. And then the Genesis album came out. Then No Jacket Required. Like, it was an embarrassment of riches. And he eventually, the overexposure would come into play, but not during this period. This was like the meat and potatoes for me.
I agree.
This was like the sizzle and the steak at the same time. In putting this album on, I remember too with putting it on the Walkman and just having I Don't Care Anymore come on. And I was aware of In the Air Tonight. So I'm like, oh, it's kind of the same, it's got the same feel to it, but but the angry vocals, for me, that was like classic Phil when he's kind of angry. I like that type of thing. Like he did it really well back then, because it was that, he wasn't screaming, but he had a grit to his voice that he was able to channel, right? And then do some of the other stuff too. But I remember this album. I remember getting it too on cassette, and it was just turn it in, put it in, flip it over, done, flip it over again, flip it over.
It was a pleasure, because it was just so different from what I had been listening to with Genesis, and this was not at this time, this was not the only thing that you could correlate between the two. Would be No Reply at All from Abacab, because he used the Phoenix horns on it. But other than that, his music sounded nothing like Genesis, but when people say, oh, you can't tell the difference. Yeah, maybe around the time of Invisible Touch, but not here. I mean, this was distinctly different, and he was doing something just so, this album is the perfect pop album for me. It just sort of like, there's so many great, I forgot how many great catchy moments there are on this thing. And it gets you, and it's also, I want to say, some of the people that play, that longtime players with him, like Daryl Sturmer, really shines on this record. I feel it's like he stands out. Much more than he did.
I wrote down the bass work too. John Giblin and Mo Foster.
Yeah.
I think that's what, in listening to this album and then thinking about Abacab coming out the year before, this album represents the end for Phil Collins of I'll put it in air quotes, his analog era. Meaning, when you listen to Abacab, they use synths. They don't use pianos.
Yeah.
Phil Collins uses pianos.
Yeah.
right? And so it's a very, analog sound, meaning just a regular, the really jazzy bass and tasty guitar.
Yeah.
By the time No Jacket Required come out, music had changed. The DX7 had come in.
Of course.
Heavy use of drums and programming. But this album still has that analog feel to it, that actual music instrument feel, real pianos. He didn't go in with the synths. And that's what, for me, that's, like you said, the difference is audible. If you listen to the opening track of Abacab, the title track, and listen to I Don't Care Anymore, they're different. There's a different feel to it. And when he does his own stuff, he was into more of he was kind of in the Billy Joel mode. The singer-songwriter sitting at a piano, working out a song and having beautiful arrangements and tasty bass playing on it. The boom, boom,
everything coming from the standpoint of rhythm.
And the song.
So rhythm bass, he would write his demos with a drum machine. Sometimes he would incorporate that drum machine because it just sounded so cool to him that he would actually use it in the song to much higher degree. But like you mentioned, acoustic piano, just a percussive instrument. So that was a conscious choice for him to do those kinds of things. He did. He played a little bit with the synth, like on stuff like I Don't Care Anymore, In the Air Tonight, like. You had that sort of eerie kind of feel, but not much of that. Just, when it came to, and it was quite a few ballads, of course, that he would always just, and like you say, some really beautiful string work, in which he, working with Arif Mardan, he was a big fan of, the folks over at Atlantic Records that gave him his break and all that kind of thing. And so these string arrangements, these heavy, it made the sound.
The Phoenix horns, great. Kidnapping them from Earth, Wind, and Fire.
It just made everything that much bigger, and it just reminds you of that time of the '70s when things were still that lush. Yeah. And he was just sort of, still kind of doing that. Even though and this album in particular, in face value, might be a little lighter, but here it's like it really the recording, the production is a step up from what he was doing on face value.
He's definitely getting comfortable in his solo career. The first one was kind of like
it was a statement,
a vomiting of emotion.
It was a statement. This is what I'm into. This is me. This is
and it was about his divorce, and I don't see how this wasn't about his divorce. Like this had, like,
it was.
Because it would be like, face value is about his divorce, but I'm reading titles like I Don't Care Anymore, I Cannot Believe It's True, It Don't Matter to Me, Don't Let Him Steal Your Heart Away. I'm like, these are songs about relationships as well, like not in a good way. So I always, when I was listening, I remember when it came out and I listened to it, I was like, oh, this must be about breaking up or something. And I was like, no, face value was. I'm like, wait.
Well, now the breakup is done, but this is the divorce. This is the angry, bitter, like, okay, we're done kind of thing. I'm sick of just, hanging in there for you and, that kind of thing. So, and like you say, he was getting more and more comfortable sitting down and writing this stuff. So I think that in this case, he was actually writing songs rather than writing letters and putting music to just words that he was, jotting down and things like that. Here he was actually, sitting and getting more comfortable just composing. Yeah. Which,
Do you think people write better songs when they're heartbroken or when they're happy? I thought when I was driving around today, listening to this album, I'm like, do people write better songs when they're happy, or do they really need that angst to really pull to mine out?
I personally do. I think the better songs are the sad songs, or or songs, even if it's an up tempo track. People again make that effort to make it catchy and make it mailable, just sort of get it out there and accessible. But it could be the saddest song lyric wise, or, like there's something about it, or perhaps, just a little bit of that angst in there. But yeah, it's hard to write a happy song. I think I would think. I would think it's much harder. And you hear a lot of artists say that. It's like, it is very, because then you're like, how do you go about what's the criteria of a happy song? Are you excited, or you
being in love, being over the top in love, right? Finding new love,
but then you run the risk of being sappy and cringe, and that's always
that's where you get Babe from Styx, right? I mean,
yeah.
Like, but is that not one of the greatest love songs, though? Right? I mean,
true. And Phil Collins is no stranger to that either. I mean, as time would go on, he'd become like Lionel Richie, and just write these love songs, these ballads, and and just one right after the other, and just keep going. There's on all of his records, he had,
he didn't write the song "Separate Lives."
No,
Stephen Bishop, wrote it.
Yeah,
I just found that out.
Yeah, that just fell into his lap. That was not something he sought out, or that somebody asked.
That was around this time too. White Nights was what, 80,
83, 84?
Was it? Yeah, I was going to say Blue Jacket Required era, right?
Yeah, 84. That was, he did the Philip Bailey album in 84.
Chinese Wall.
Yeah, around this time. So yeah, that was that, and there was Against All Odds came out of the movie.
Yes,
incredible
movie. I love it.
That was a good movie and a good soundtrack. I might add. There's some good people.
If I have a man crush, it was Jeff Bridges in Against All Odds. Like, the guy was just perfectly tanned. He was fit. He
had the beard, Johnny. Like, he always reminded me of Johnny with his freaking perfect hair, his coif.
He was fantastic, And then you contrast that with James Woods.
That was pretty much a remake of Out of the Past.
Yeah. So this was again, we were perfectly positioned to reap all the benefits of that, because it was new to us. We weren't into Genesis, we weren't music listeners in 73 when Genesis was like a really avant-garde thing. You went back into the catalog, but we were perfectly positioned for this new music to be coming out.
We were so impressionable.
And for us to be getting into it, for it to be there for us. I remember distinctly when side one would end on the Walkman, and you'd turn the tape over, and the horns from "It Don't Matter to Me" would just blare as the opening thing. I'm like, there's not a better side two opener. Because you know it's coming. Like, when you put the Walkman on and you kind of know this big blare is kind of like the beginning of Star Wars. Like, when the fan, it's coming.
Yeah.
But you're waiting for it, and you know that you're going to get a big blast in your ear. And It Don't Matter to Me was always one of my favorite kind of like side opening tracks, just because of that. I put it on, and
it's an incredible song.
Yeah, with the cassette tape, there's like a 5 to 7 second leader on there, so you wait. You're
waiting for it.
Vroom when it got over the little tape piece. and then it start. It was just such a great way to it was exciting.
The tempo of that track just gets me. The drums on it. This was, I dare say, this was the last album that his drumming. I just love that jazzy kind of stuff, even like Through These Walls, which is an extremely odd song.
All right,
why he chose to write a song about being a pervert or whatever, a voyeur, whatever it is. I think he was kind of channeling Intruder by Gabriel from, I think
I also looked at it from a guy who's going through a relationship and his partner is with someone else.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like, maybe he followed, maybe a little bit of a voyeur, like he followed them to a hotel, and he's in the next room, but he's not doing it because he's like pervy. He's like, he's almost torturing himself. Like, I can hear what they're doing. I followed her with her lover to this hotel, and I got the room next to it, so I could hear what they're doing, but I don't want to hear what they're doing. Like, it hurts to do that. But
that's a really good, valid point right there.
Yeah, that's why,
that's brilliant, because that explains why you have the In the Air Tonight drum fill. You just pretty much spelled it out right there. So if he's following that, if it's all about his wife and it's all about that kind of thing, if
that's
she
what I kind of looked at it, is when you're following somebody when they're with somebody else, but you're still with them and you want to see, but you don't want to see.
Yeah. That's true.
Like
that's so true.
You can't look away, like a car crash. Like you don't want to look, but you can't look away.
Because I always critique that. I always I never he kept that became sort of very repetitive. That dun, 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 and he would do.
He regretted doing that. He said recently in retrospect, goes, that was a mistake. I think he should have leaned into that and made that Phil an Easter egg, kind of like "I'll Be Back" for Arnold. Like it would have been fun for him just to it didn't have to be as big as this, but to tuck it in other songs down the road on his solo career, just kind of a fun little Easter egg. Yeah, this was like, I remember listening to him like, wait, is that exactly the same Phil, or is he doing it a little different? And if he's doing a little different, why is he doing it a little different?
Yeah.
And not doing it the exact, but he was doing the exact same thing.
I think he's kind of channeling that anger from In the Air Tonight, and it's that makes so much sense. Wow.
Okay, there you go.
What a revelation. There it is. But
mind blown.
My point is that then he kind of leans into and he goes right into this like that
nice little roll fill,
flams and all that kind of. Oh my God, that's the drumming I love by him. That is when you know that it's, you kind of get tired of just the one drum thing, but it sounds incredible.
Well, it's like two different songs. It's
but like for me, this is this. If there's ever a song to kind of say, okay, well, check this part out. This is what Phil can do. As a drummer, this is why he's a good drummer. It could be that song. As an example.
He got to and there are some other kind of playbook song. I call them kind of playbook songs because I cannot believe it's true.
Another.
I think that the genesis of it, corny, started with No Reply at All.
Yeah.
Followed through I Missed Again.
Yeah.
And then Cannot Believe It's True is kind of like like if there's a trilogy of that type of song that he was writing or trying to create, I think No Reply at All is kind of like the first crack at it.
Funnily enough, that's the song that I when I say Phil Collins, and that's the song that always comes to mind.
Really? I Cannot Believe It's True?
It is that it's did it that horn did it. That's it's not No Reply at All. It's not I Missed Again. It's that.
Yeah. Actually, that don't matter to me. I was singing. Cannot Believe It's True.
When you describe Phil Collins, when I hear the name Phil Collins, that's what I think of. That's the first song that comes to mind.
It's got a lot of great arrangement. There's a lot of, he was getting really good at putting things in the background.
Yeah.
It's got a really nice arrangement. There's some other percussive things going on or just other kind of instruments.
Yeah.
And then he was getting good at stacking his vocals, right? And stacking those background vocals too. So it was really, he was really kind of learning, kind of really becoming a student of that, of kind of wanting to do something and then going ahead and figuring out how to do it. And that's probably where You Can't Hurry Love probably helped, is like, if I can do this, I'm going to learn so much.
He's coming from the standpoint of not being a producer per se. Yeah. He just did it. I just need a good pair of ears and I know what I want. And I have these things in my head. So he wouldn't even write, actual musical notes. He would just write dots, like just like the horn section by example was just me. I want it like the it's almost like Morse code in a way. Like he got Tom moved it from Earth, Wind and Fire, the arranger of the horns for Earth, Wind and Fire. He came in and did all that stuff. He deciphered all of that.
He's like, you need somebody to
he goes, I can't write this shit down. But he knew what he was talking about though.
Yeah.
And I think that says something. It's I think a lot of Black American artists really respect Phil for that kind of stuff. Like he this cat knows what he's doing. Like, this,
it had a big brassy sound,
right? Yeah,
that he was getting out of the Phoenix horns. He was just kind of really, kind of laying them in there, and it just kind of, Yeah, this, like I said, this was just like such a perfect time to be at the right age to hit this.
Great rhythm guitar by Daryl on that one.
Good. I was just going to ask you a question about Daryl Sturmer.
He was just so like, just that, it had that classic 70s like guitar, this could have been a really great, I don't know why I didn't, now that I think about it, I should have used this for our yacht rock episode.
Sure.
I think it could have been a perfect light, sort of light touch.
There's a lot of stuff that could have been mined from this.
Yeah.
Do you think Daryl Sturmer is happier being the guitarist for Genesis? Or do you think is he happier being kind of the leader or a higher elevation position in Phil Collins' band? Phil Collins and the Hot Tub Club. It's a silly question, but do you think he's happier in Genesis, or do you think he's happier as Phil Collins solo?
Well, I think he's getting the best of both worlds. With Phil, he can appear on his records. He can,
Has Daryl ever been on a Genesis album? Has he ever appeared? That's messed up.
Nope. Chester Thompson has never appeared on a Genesis album.
Well, I can understand that because it's Phil.
The only album I think he ever appeared on by any of the members was Tony Banks' first solo record. Chester played on that. Yeah. But no, Daryl, he's never played on a Genesis record.
Yeah, he doesn't get enough credit, Daryl Sturmer,
he's phenomenal.
For his work with Genesis Live and his work.
Yeah, he could do. He could play everything that Steve Hackett has. The way he reinterprets Steve Hackett. Just go back and listen to some of the, like Seconds Out. Mm-hmm. Or Steve Hackett was still in the band, but there were a couple of tracks, and I think at that point he was just leaving. So there are a few things that he was at Three Sides Live. Some of the older stuff. Daryl handles it, and him and Chester, they handle it beautifully. And and again, this was the period that I got to know the band. To me, this is Genesis. This is the band.
Yeah,
it's not. Hackett and Gabriel, it's still, to this day, it's still a little foreign to me in a way, because I never saw them in that iteration live. Here I got to see it, and they handled the old stuff really well.
It's interesting that they would get two kind of jazz fusion.
Yeah.
Chester Thompson, somewhat experimental drummers, but people that were not in the prog, although Chester was with Zappa, I suppose.
Yeah.
But Daryl Sturmer is a jazz guitarist.
Well, I dare say that a lot of prog, and there's actually, I think he's a drummer. He's from Britain. He has his own channel. I think he's on
Wings
YouTube.
of Pegasus?
Not sure, but he's really into prog, but he makes the case that there's a lot of sort of crossover there. There's a lot of jazz fusion in prog music as well, especially in the late 70s, when you consider some of those bands and what Phil was doing with Brand X and what even Weather Report. There's some stuff there that's that can get a little hefty. Not just that lightweight kind of stuff that they were doing, like Birdland and things like that, but I'm talking about like there's some few tracks that it's pretty complex, arrangements and that kind of thing. So and you get
John Giblin, who's on this album. He was in Brand X for the first three albums.
Then he ended up with Simple Minds.
It's what's strange. John Giblin and Mo Foster played bass on this album. They both died in 2023.
Yeah.
That's weird. Anyway, how about Like China? Singing in his English accent, really trying to really cockneying it up or whatever accent he has, but really leaning into it. We used to make fun of it. We used to laugh about it back in the day. Yeah. And it's just one of those, so you can't take it seriously. It's just kind of, but if anything, I think that's creepier because he's going to, assumedly taking the virginity of someone, and I'll hold you like China. You won't feel nothing. I'll hold you like China. I'm not sure that's a good thing. That's not reassuring that you won't feel anything, but but he really sings in like this Cockney accent, I guess, really kind of leaning into it.
That's the showman. That's the clown coming out.
Yeah, but it's fine. It brings some levity.
But I dare say, I mean, when he did some stuff with Genesis too, like, he would always put on that performance.
Illegal Alien.
Yeah. Well,
what
even
are we going to do when we do that album? How are we going to talk about that song?
Oh my God, I don't know. I don't know, but maybe we should just avoid it.
I don't know if we can, because it's a good song for what it is. It's a good song. It's problematic. It's so problematic, but anyway, for conversation for another time. And then of course the West Side is the instrumental.
That always reminded me of
Joe Jackson.
It does. It
jazzy.
It reminds me of New York.
Skyline of who?
It reminds me of New York, really.
Yeah, Manhattan Skyline. That's what I said. Yeah, kind of like
Taxi, I
was just gonna say that. Like you're in a taxi cab going on the
like
West
Bob
Side
James, but not Bob James. It's Phil Collins, but it's that kind of, that's what you see.
Yes,
going over the Verrazano Bridge or whatever.
Exactly. Now I'm thinking about the theme from Taxi.
Yeah. I had that on cassette. Yeah. I love that tape, man. That was good stuff on there. And some of the sort of like incidental music that you hear in the shows, like little bits and pieces, but longer versions of that stuff that was a great record. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I like that he kind of, it actually made it easier to go back for face value, that he kind of had this blueprint and a comfort zone that he stayed in, but continued to expand on it. Hand in Hand was from face value is something totally different. So it's not like, oh, here's my instrumental, I'm going to make it like that. No, he kind of was setting it in the world that this album was in, which is a little more jazzier, right? That lone saxophone. Just kind of like that gives it that New York feels, like that echo, kind of reverby sax a little, and just the tasty drum work, and
he had
the horn, just that whole.
He had several solos. That guy, he did that solo in One More Night, which was tremendous. He did the solo in I Cannot Believe It's True is great. That little just him, like Don Myrick, just by himself, like without the. Instead of it being, a guitar solo, it's a sax solo. It's just phenomenal. But yeah, the horns really I'm glad that he stuck with that, because it's a staple for him. It is, it's part of him. It's part of his DNA. And the fact that he got what he wanted to do, which was to put together a big band, and he toured Europe with it. He did a few dates, and Hot Night in Paris, and I had that record too. Yeah, which he was working with George Duke, and and this big ensemble thing, and that was for me. I couldn't have been happier that he finally got a chance to do that. Because that was a dream of his to do, because that's what he's thinking when he's doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I always like to be in like this sort of that big band sound with the horns and everything. And he actually got to do it, and playing like weird stuff, like Genesis songs, like interpreting Genesis songs into, and not just, and we're not talking about like just like stuff from Abacab, or we're talking like old stuff too, Los Endos and, and things like that. And it just, but it was odd, but it worked.
Is there an example, or is he the only example that you can think of offhand of someone whose solo work really did not match the output of the group he was in? You know what I mean? Like, for the most part, like when somebody kind of, if Peter Cetera leaves Chicago and he does a solo album, it's going to be like Chicago. It's going to be, but it's just going to be all Peter Cetera. You know what I mean? Like, you get what I'm saying? When someone when a lead singer, Dennis DeYoung, his stuff still sounds like Styxy. He didn't do, but Phil's stuff was just so different at this point, right here, at this moment in time.
Yeah.
Coming off of Abacab and having Hello, I Must Be Going.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other artist whose solo work does not represent the group they're in such a way like this? Like, You Can't Hurry Love, like, that's not the guy that's saying who done it.
I right? You know what? He could be one of the only examples of this. I'm even thinking of like Steely Dan. Donald Fagen, his stuff sounds remarkably like Steely Dan. He's like one half of the group, and it still sounds like might be lighter, might be not as dense, but it still has that same DNA.
Phrasing is always the same. He's got a way of singing.
Right.
But I can't offhand, I can't think of a solo artist who's natural stuff. And I don't mean, and I'm sure there are some solo artists that go and do experimental stuff. Yeah. But this isn't experimental for Phil Collins. This is kind of like his real influences, right? And kind of like, this is really the stuff I wear on my sleeve.
Right.
Heart on my sleeve type stuff.
Yeah.
And then going back into the fold of Genesis, and then coming out with the Genesis self-titled album, which again was just another knockout for us. It was just something amazing. Sliding out of that and sliding into No Jacket Required, where he fully embraced the 80s, like the 80s pop sound. Like he really was able to, everyone sounds like, well, it's all the same. And it's only because
it's not, though. It's really not.
I think why people get mixed up is because all the stuff was coming out at the same time. So people might have thought that No Reply at All was on the same album as Hello, I Must Be Going. Because if this stuff was literally, laying right on top of each other, and a single from Abacab is falling off the charts, and then his new solo single is coming up. So for the casual listener, they might be like, there's just always something out. So is this all one album? Who is this?
I think it was.
What is it from?
I think the only common denominator there was that it reached that point where if you're just half-assed listening to the radio. Seriously, but it's that voice that he had that sort of really it could sometimes can be almost, if you're not in the right frame of mind, it could be very grating. I dare say, because it's just so blaring, and so when you consider the stuff he did on No Jacket Required and then Invisible Touch, and then to hear that any given radio station would play a song from that. 2 songs later, it's something from Invisible Touch. I can understand why people would immediately think that. Again, it's sort of could be somewhat of a Mandela effect in a sense, because all you're hearing is his voice. You're not really paying attention to the synths of Tony Banks, or you're not really listening for that. You're listening to what Phil is doing there, and I think that's people just got really tired of hearing that. Every other song, literally, for a while, like 85, 86, man. I mean, around that time, Land of Confusion, Tonight. And then
Studio, One More Night, Take Me Home.
Yeah.
And it was just,
and then working with Philip, Easy Lover.
Then all the side stuff,
Against All Odds. And then he had, what was it? The Howard Jones song,
No One Is to Blame.
No One Is to Blame. You heard it. You hear it. Oh, Phil Collins again. What what the hell's he doing on that song? Because
he's like the elf on the shelf. He was everywhere. He's in every household. Right?
That's great.
Every house had one.
The elf on the shelf.
It was it's true. We were, this album was before that. It was before the flood to grab somebody has an album called Before the Flood, I think, right? But to cop that album title, this was still in him. This was still him in his empire building phase.
Yeah.
Which again, and I don't want to say he wasn't hungry after this, but he was still he had something to prove still.
Yeah.
Because Face Value kind of came and went. It wasn't huge. It was, In the Air Tonight was a radio hit, and it got good reviews, and people, okay, Phil Collins, and then Abacab came out, and it wasn't gangbusters. In the prog world, it was good, and it was a good, solid rock album, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, okay, let me go back and make another solo album, and he's just continuing the growing and the learning process on this album. That's the way I look at this. And Face Value and this are 1-2 punches, whereas No Jacket Required does not fit in. No, I think you could listen to Face Value and this album together, and they complement each other. The same DNA is sprinkled throughout. There's progression in songwriting, but they match well.
They do.
No Jacket Required. You can't put it in and say, well, listen to these 3 albums. No Jacket Required was something different.
It was so different, and
because
it was
everything changed.
It was extremely jarring for me to hear the opening, because I hadn't heard, and the only song that I actually heard from No Jacket Required at the time was a song that's not even on the album, and it was a song called "Man with the Horn." That was the song and it sounded nothing like anything on that record. It was just a straight up. It sounded like something from "Hello, I Must Be Going." Really, it had that sort of, like you say, analog type sound. It was the horns. It was, and then they never used it. They never put it on the record. I think they changed the lyrics and they put it in Miami Vice in his episode, and the theme song for that game show with a rat race or whatever. Yeah, it was the same song but with different lyrics. So, yeah, and then to put that tape into the Walkman and then hear like. And it's like studio. I'm
like all this weird.
What the hell? Like what is Prince on this record? That's what that was. That was my immediate thought. Like, what's he doing here? Like, and it was jarring. I wasn't used to it. And
total, I think we got to give him credit that he was able to lean into that, and kind of was like, yeah, things are changing, and I'm open to it. And let me do it. And you can reference our No Jacket Required episode, because we do these episodes out of order. So it's already been done. So if you want to see the next album, it's been done like 2 years ago.
Yeah. No, but this is a fine pop record. It's actually a lot better than I remember. Because I still prefer, Face Value for me is the one I really, really, that's my favorite. Just because it's just so, I feel like it's so heartfelt and genuine here. I feel like, he's starting to get a little loosey goosey with stuff. He's experimenting, he's writing, but the Face Value was really kind of felt like he was writing with a purpose and just, not even thinking that he could be a songwriter. That's what's so remarkable about the record is that
it was raw. It was more raw.
It was raw, but it everything worked. Everything just gelled, and it gives you a good representation of who he is as a musician, as a performer, where his heart lies and his taste in music, that kind of thing.
One of my all-time favorite Phil Collins songs is on "Hello, I Must Be Going," though. Don't let him steal your heart away. At that time, young, 82, was going through stuff, and it hit at the right time in the right way, and it's just a beautiful song. It really showed how he can, that he could write something that would be on the par of something that McCartney might write, like that. It's like that kind of a tender, it's emotional, it's tender, it's well written, it's well arranged, it's got all the great things in it. It's got beautiful piano work in there.
It builds up.
It checks off all the boxes for that type of song. And back then it was just one of those ones that just kind of hit. It's one of those kind of gut punch songs, like if you're in a certain place in a certain,
sure. Yeah.
Whatever you're going through, that one just hit and it always stuck. It was just kind of, so listening to this again kind of brings, again, this album was like an instant time machine. It really just put me back in that whole era, of just, when we were so open.
Yeah, 82 it was a great year. Both musically for me, it was a great year, and how I feel about movies of that year too. So, for me, it was the whole package of getting into all Mirage. Stuff.
We had Mirage earlier in the year from Fleetwood Mac, and
that's right.
There was just so much going on, and that was our. Yeah, we grew up in the 70s. We were born in the 60s, grew up in the 70s, but came to. Came to realization in the early 80s, like we were aware of that stuff, but we didn't see Zeppelin. We didn't get Zeppelin 4 when it came out, but this was
so ironic too, because I feel like you and I kind of have that in common where we were like old souls already. We were like, we were listening to this kind of stuff and really getting the effect of it.
This was new music, right?
It was brand new music, but it was
contemporary music,
Right, but it was but it hit me like songs about divorce and everything. Yeah. Why do I like this so much? Like, why
the guy bitching about getting divorced?
Yeah, but I already felt the pain. Like I I understood what he was saying. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe it just hits you like, this is, it didn't consider put this up against a punk song or whatever. I wasn't thinking about stuff
or
like
a throwaway pop song, that was out at the time. It was, we were, and in a way we gained stuff, but sometimes I feel like I missed things because there was stuff I wasn't listening to that I didn't, like at the time that this was out, or maybe let's say No Jacket Required or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't take a group like Wham seriously.
Yeah.
I was like, it's pop. Wait, but now it's like, oh shit, you know what? I missed out really on George Michael. On like hearing what a great vocalist he was, just because Careless Whisper was all over the radio. My mom liked it, so that means I couldn't like it. I had to make fun of it because my mom liked it. So I wasn't giving myself the permission structure to.
Yeah.
Just sit back and listen to that and enjoy things. But we were listening to other things that were elevating us, so it's
right.
You unless all you do your whole life is sit around listening to music, you're going to miss things because you're going to focus on something and you're going to get that. And that's going to take you down different, branching universes, right? Like you're going to go into the Genesis thing. You're going to go into Peter Gabriel. You went into Brand X, which then maybe takes you to the Mothers of Invention. You go down different ways.
Right.
But in the meantime, other stuff is happening.
That's right.
And you're like, no, you know what? That's not where I'm at. So the hell, I don't need that. But then later on, you're like, oh shit, this was happening at the same time. And I kind of dismissed it, but
not a I mean,
it's still there, but it's, there's so much going on with music because it never stops. It's not like movies where there's like a release date and you got the summer block, but there's like always stuff coming out. So it's like, you gotta pick your spots, right? You gotta like pick your shot and kind of know what you're looking for or going for. And then you find it and you find like-minded friends or people that then encourage that, right? And we all sit around and listen to the same stuff and be like, oh, that's fucking cool. You hear that part, play, rewind and play it again. So we're doing that. But on the flip side of that, other things are happening.
Yeah.
That we are not, into just because of the focus that we have on the stuff that we're into and consuming that, like becoming all consuming. Right. And going into the discography, and then you spend years of your life listening to all that and then trying to find bootlegs. Back in the day, bootlegs were big and we try and find bootlegs and stuff.
That's right. It was me it was Genesis for me. It was the Police as well. I became obsessed with them. For you, obviously ELO.
Obviously.
Jeff Lynne. Me too. I mean, we shared all that stuff in the 80s, the late 80s.
Yeah, we all did. So it was kind of like having a club, and we all
we found the Beatles, right? And of course, I mean, that was a breakthrough for us because we weren't really listening to the Beatles at the time. Well, we weren't, but it was because of these, so sometimes, those gateway, groups, do I don't regret because they have merit, because it did open up a lot of doors for me. Phil led to Eric Clapton. Clapton led to me listening to the blues, Muddy Waters, and going back and listening to, and I became really intrigued by the history of it. Yeah. Roots music and all that kind of stuff. So everything kind of had its thing, but you're right. There was stuff coming out at the time that we weren't paying attention to, like, just the new stuff on the scene. And my brother always, I think I said this many times about my brother was like, you're like 10 years, behind everybody. But he's right, but you know what? I didn't care. Like, I still don't. Like, I because I will find this stuff in time. It will come to me, and it has. There is a lot of stuff that has come to me that it's very late in the game, but
I've said that too. When you're ready for it, sometimes you're not ready. I wasn't ready for it back then because I was laser focused on this part of my musical education, and now it's like, and sometimes it's better to have more of a background and maybe more of an openness. And back then you're like, oh, F that. That's stupid. I don't want to, no.
I would rather be into, somebody so much that he can open musical doors for you as sort of a tour guide, if you will. I'd rather be into somebody like that than just get into the latest fad and then just quickly get out of it as soon as you got into it. and just move on to the next thing, and what's next.
Well,
And
it's hard to know if that's going to happen, right? It's hard to know if like when Mr.'s album came out, it was a great album, but you go with them and you don't know if they're going to flame out or what's going to happen, right? So you kind of, how many of those or how many of those little ledges that we went off on, that kind of didn't pan out. There's so many of those little things. We take a step off the road and something different, but then they just don't.
Right.
They don't grab, or they're not able to sustain. They flame out, or whatever happens. So it's really a amazing thing. It'll be interesting to talk to other people of how they view that, and if it's the same type of thing that this leads to this, or I'll just listen to anything you put in front of me. I don't care. I'll listen to everything. I love all types of music.
That's the thing. We didn't have that exposure, that kind of exposure. For us, like somebody like our frequent guest, our resident guest, Chris Clark, the reason I think he's got such a great amassed knowledge is because his father listened to, probably had a massive record collection back in the day. I mean, our friend Glenn, was a kid I knew. I was impressed with his music. He had that kind of musical nod at age 14.
Yeah.
That I didn't.
We're clawing our way through the darkness.
I was 2 years older than him, and I didn't know jack shit.
Yeah.
I knew I was more into, TV and movies, and music was not a thing, but he turned me on to so much shit. I mean, there was someone pulling out records like I never heard before. And this is so different,
it's amazing. It's everybody's journey is individual. I guess that's what makes it their journey. And what they grab, we could listen to the same 5 artists, but then decide to research 5 different artists as a result, because of things we might hear, or, they might list their influences, and you might say, yeah, for Clapton, I'm going to go to Muddy Waters. And when you say Clapton, I'm going to say, well, I might check out the band stuff, because he said he was influenced. People might be going into, from the same artist, finding different things because of their influences, and something else grabbed. They might listen to Muddy Waters and that's too traditional.
Yeah, you have that choice. You can make, but the point is that you're trying it out. I would, sometimes there is something to be said for an artist who is also really into music and not just doing their thing and trying to say, oh, we're better than everybody else. Right? There's artists out there who are humbled by their influences, and hey, you think I'm good, check this guy out. You're going to think he's even better, and maybe it's the case, maybe it's not, but you're going to listen, you're going to check that stuff. That's what I love. I love influence. I love people who, I tend to critique things about, oh, this is a rip off of that, and every now and again. Yeah, but you reach a certain point where you can tell the difference.
Yes.
You can tell what's people who really love what they're doing, and they're doing it with such love and devotion to what they're into
and care.
But then there are people who are just doing it for, because it's just popular or something. You know what I mean? Like that's, so
right. Yeah. Well, let's put a bow on this album. Let's circle back. We took an exit ramp, but it was related. But it was important to do it, because I think it helps cement where we were at the time, and where we're coming from. So I think if anything, it helps kind of hopefully people get to know where we were at this point, and what was going through our heads as far as music, because we were literally the sponges at that point, the young sponge that was just thrown in the water and kind of like first time absorbing water and expanding. And it's like, oh, this is what I'm meant to do as a sponge. I'm meant to absorb and expand,
Right.
And that's what we were. We were like little sponges, like kind of floating around in the musical water. So top 2 tracks on this album, top 3 tracks. It's only got 10 songs. This was a quick one. This is in and out, for the most part.
Top 3 for me. Cannot Believe It's True. Don't Matter to Me. West Side.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Love West Side.
All right.
All 3 of those. Those are my go-to tracks.
We've got one in common. I'm going to go with I Don't Care Anymore. It Don't Matter to Me, and Don't Let Them Steal Your Heart Away. I don't care anymore. It's just a again, it was so impactful.
Yeah.
Getting this cassette and opening it up and having just that song also just kind of, with the drum, the doom, doom, It's just kind of like, okay, here we go. School's in session. Here we go.
Well, that you're getting that right. I mean, you can say it's influenced by In the Air, but it's really not. I mean, it has a different flavor. The drums are hitting you right away.
Yeah,
and it's just constant.
He's giving you what you had to wait for in the past. He's like, okay, I think we don't want to. We don't want to hold this back anymore. It's kind of like let's lean into it. So this is a great album. Check it out. It's on streaming. It really it's just it's at a pivotal point. It's just before everything blew up for this guy, and Face Value is more of is an intimate statement, and this continues that. But it's also what more it is the growth of the artist and him really developing his skill set, and I didn't realize it at the time because you just listened to it. It's Phil Collins, But looking back on it, it's like, he was really becoming the master of his own destiny. Really kind of, and this kind of stuff led to all these other side jobs. It's not like, and this wasn't a gangbusters album, but the word was getting out. It's like, this, he's got an interesting sound. He can do interesting things. He's not just a prog guy. So people are like, can you, and he was like the king of the one-offs. He did it's just kind of one-off production songs that he would do.
He did
full albums, but kind of like,
and I generally think
hands everywhere.
It's like I say, you just look at the guy and you think, I don't see.
He's the most unassuming guy.
Unassuming. From what I understand, he was the nicest guy to work with. He was, we're talking about him in the past tense, but I mean, he's retired now, unfortunately, but you know what I mean? Like, he's just, funny. I always enjoyed the humor of the man. Like, he had a lot of energy. Boy, could he friggin' belt out songs, and just love that energy that he had running back and forth to the kit, and then sitting on a solo tour, sitting down at a piano.
Yep,
which is something he never did with Genesis. You never saw him do that. So you're getting something new. You're getting something.
He understood his role in both. He understood his role in Genesis, and as a solo artist, he's the guy that's out there really. Genesis is part of the group with the lead singer.
But that respect that the three of them had, where they knew, they come back together, and it wasn't like, they were, I think Tony and Mike, but really, I wish we were, we could do something that's, but I think they kind of, they joked around, but they appreciated
they got there. They got there.
Yeah.
It took a little longer, but Genesis got there as well. They, it became, towards the end, it became ubiquitous. Then it became, is this Genesis or is this Phil Collins back?
Yeah.
Early 90s, it was like We Can't Dance. And then it was like, well, is this, him?
Well, the idea that they could, we could have it. Well, I think they really enjoyed having hit singles.
Sure, of course.
Tony and Mike, they were no strangers to, to making a hit single was a big deal for them.
Of course.
For sure. And, but the fact that they were able to branch off, do those, things on their own, come back and just reconvene.
Yeah.
And be inspired by that. And such mutual respect.
The most democratic of bands that didn't really have
absolutely. And that's a rarity.
That animosity, like this, we just read about the Police again. Now Andy Summers and Stuart Copeland, sued Sting for Every Breath You Take. You owed us money. We had an agreement. We didn't. It was a hint, whatever. So anyway, go check this album out. Hello, I Must Be Going. November 1982, a lifetime ago, 44 years ago, when we were barely shaving, but we were consuming music like beasts. And this was one of our one of the pillar albums for me in listening to music and consuming whole albums voraciously, whatever the word is.
That makes me happy. It makes me happy. Everybody has a favorite by Phil. If people could pick one album by him and say that's my all-time favorite, even if it's No Jacket or something later on, what?
Must be going.
More power to you. That couldn't make me happier. Is that there are fans out there that really and a lot of new fans coming into play too.
Yeah, and I think this will if you think what Phil Collins is, listen to this album, because this really is the outlier. Everyone knows In the Air Tonight, a ton of reactions. Everyone knows Sussudio. You don't really. This is like the redheaded stepchild. You don't really hear a lot about this album and the stuff on it.
And finally, he didn't think much
be on
of
an oldie station, but beyond that, it's kind of.
he didn't have much to say about it himself.
Yeah,
I don't think
kind of lost in the shuffle,
but
yeah, it's a great one. So go check it out. Let us know on Instagram, Facebook, and or YouTube how you feel about it, or if you hate it, love it, don't understand why we're gushing over it. But every so often we get the gushing episodes, and this is one of them. And that's all there is to it. So go ahead and check it out. It's on all the streaming platforms. I'm sure he's got a whole You Can't Hurry Love video was all over MTV. It was like that was the thing that launched it. But don't let that decide whether or not you listen to this album, because it won't work either way. If you decide that, I like this and I want more of it, you're not going to get it. And if you don't like it and then you say, well, I'm not going to listen to the album, well, that's not all the album is, so you got to listen to it anyway. So there you go, right?
Yeah.
Right? So there you go. So that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. Make sure you follow us. If you've made it to this point, go ahead and follow us on your favorite podcast platform provider. You'll get a gentle notification every time a new episode comes out. And we'll have them hot and ready for you each and every week. We've done it since 2021. And, the road is stretching out before us. And the gas tank is full. So we're going to keep driving through. So for Eric, this has been Dean. And we will catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.